Welcome everyone to the PYRESWAP show. I'm going to make this particular show as value-packed as possible, and I want to thank you in advance for your attendance. Right now, you guys are probably aware that I am completely immersed in storytelling, and from the work that was done this morning, I realized that to talk about the origin of this project and to talk about like what it means and like talk about what actually drove it to become what it is, we actually have to dig deep into my past. And believe it or not, now I realize that the origin story of this project doesn't necessarily start with tomb forks. It starts with my father dying when I was 19. And for those of you who don't know, my father committed suicide from financial hardship. He made a business investment that the economy of 2007 chose to make extremely unprofitable while he still had debt. And the reason this matters is because the last time that I got to spend with my father before he died, we were watching a documentary on the Federal Reserve. And it's still quite vivid to me to see my father on the other side of that living room, biting his tongue to the point that I could see the blood on his teeth. He was so enraged about the existence of the Federal Reserve and the way it operated. He had immigrated to the United States from the USSR in the 1970s. So about a decade before I was born. He married my mother in order to get a green card as well as citizenship. And the type of country he grew up in versus the type of country he immigrated to, it made him a man of certain principles. And two of these lessons are integral to the development of Five. And if you don't understand these lessons, I don't think it's possible to understand the rest of the project. But I think that when you guys finally watch this story, and this story will be video form, I will probably sit in an armchair in front of a black background. We have a green screen slightly out of camera. You guys can't see it. But it'll probably be me in front of a black background just telling this story. And I think it'll really make it clear on who I am, not just to you guys listening to me right now, but to thousands upon thousands of people who have never heard of me before. Anyways, I can't wait to share it with you. But today is Thankful Thursday, and today what I want to be thankful for is the opportunity to get better, the ability to grow, the ability to figure out where you've made mistakes in the past. One of those areas that I'm particularly proud about, where I see now countless mistakes I made, is the PYRESWAP origin story. I want you guys to know that as I'm telling the PYRESWAP origin story, I actually watched it again this morning. So I was watching the PYRESWAP origin story a few hours ago, and I want you guys to know I now have in the first 8 minutes, I had a full page of notes on everything I did wrong. Does that make sense? So the video is only like 50 minutes long or 55 minutes. And before I'm even 10 minutes into it, yeah, I already see that I'm hooking with a redemption exploit, which is not, even though it was quite painful to the people that were already in 2-ohm and 3-ohm, it's kind of like the PYRESWAP origin story that I'm telling in that video, it's like I'm only telling it to the last fragment of tomb fork investors. Right, I'm only describing. Thank you, Maddie. Maddie, you're gonna love my costume, by the way. You're gonna love my costume when it's completed. Okay. By the way, I can talk about that too. There are examples of so the thing that I'm doing right now is called character development. I want you to know most of the stories for learnpyreswap.com, they're already kind of outlined. You kind of already know the story that has to happen. But the process of writing a story and kind of refining it and then checking it and improving it, it's an iterative process. And I want you guys to know that just today, I'm literally completely changing the origin story to focus more on the origin of 5. Like what could have happened? What could have happened in a young man's life for him to become obsessively and compulsively focused with learning about how banks work? And that happened to be the death of my father when I was 19. But I'll save that for later. The hook is the redemption exploit. So again, I'm not really talking about anything that's too broad. I am techno-babbling way too early. I'm techno-babbling in the first 2 minutes. I am not being emotive enough because I'm being completely analytical in the way that I tell this story. I tie into 2-ohm and 3-ohm, which is somewhat useful, but it's only useful to people who still care about those projects, which again might be a few hundred people, and then it's not really what the project needs. Not emotive enough. Additionally, I do not build rapport with myself as the character in this story. So there has to be a kind of like a rapport built with the main character in the story. And if I'm the main character in the PYRESWAP origin story, what I did with the first video is like, I'm assuming that the people listening already have rapport built with me. If you're listening to the PYRESWAP show, you also have rapport built with me. Does that make sense? I'm being way too analytical. I'm also not describing what the Century Circus is, so people have no context for a whole bunch of names I'm dropping. I literally throw the word terminal utility in the first 5 minutes too many times. So my memory, because I'm telling the story from memory, my memory is hyper visual and it's not emotive. Like I'm trying to think in my head about like what were the major things that happened, but I'm not really talking about them in a way where I'm describing how I felt about them happening, right? The redemption exploit, like I'm literally just like trying to drive through the details of this as fast as possible, which is the opposite of what storytelling is for. I'm also dropping the name on way too many projects. Technobabble, boring, too much vocabulary. These are the things that I'm flagging for myself. And then I stopped watching it at around the 8-minute mark because I know what I was doing wrong. And I want you guys to know the origin story is still the most popular video we've ever made. So even though I wrote that story like an asshole, because it's a story, it's still the most popular video we've ever made. Does that make sense? Like, even though I'm looking at this now, I'm like, wow, I'm doing a really bad job at storytelling. It does, Maddie, but you know what? The emotions and message, they're not structured in a way that really is packaged for the human brain on the other end. It's not, you want to think about, if you consider human brains like computers, it's like the story I'm telling is not the right file type. Does that make sense allegorically? By the way, I literally am now on a elimination diet of supplements because I feel like I was on 12 to 15 daily supplements, and I think I was injuring myself. So today I'm taking like a while to like stop taking supplements besides prescriptions, and I'm already noticing that I am able to be less stressed at any given moment of the workday. So I definitely learned something about myself, that I was over-stressing myself through supplements probably for most of the year. I think it had to build up for a while, and what I probably did was put too much. Yep. And you know, Whisper, you know what I realized, by the way? There's somebody in the same room as me, and his name is we'll call him Raymond, all right? And I want you guys to know something. Raymond is now here in the PYRESWAP house, but I'm gonna tell you guys 2 numbers about Raymond, okay? 2 numbers, okay. Time it took to persuade can anybody guess on the time it took to persuade Raymond to come here? Yeah. Dr. Mac is posting an Everybody Loves Raymond gif too, which is funny. Do we have any guesses on the time it took to persuade Raymond to come here? Maddie, I fucking wish, okay? 4 to 7 months. Okay? About 4 to 7 months. Yes, and then Maddie, you want to know something else? Okay. I'm going to erase this now. Time it took to teach Raymond the PYRESWAP basics. Any guesses? Not bad. 4 to 7 days. Oh no, I would agree that everyone's still learning. In fact, until we have learned PYRESWAP made, until we have PyreInfo made, I really have to just completely refocus on this blind spot of mine concerning how little everyone really understands how to connect the concepts of PYRESWAP, which is fine. That's exactly what we're working on right now. The first part of that is, in fact, I think connecting the concepts of the events that made me me and how that connects to PYRESWAP. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
because
time it took for Ray to persuade Phil to make PYRESWAP or learn PYRESWAP. 4 to 7 days.
Okay, anyways, the time it took to teach Raymond the PYRESWAP basics was 4 to 7 days. Now, why do I bring these two numbers up? Does anyone know? Why do I bring these two numbers up? Because now what are we looking at? Who here can guess why I'm bringing these up? Yeah, okay. I'm just going to pretend that nobody answered. Nobody? Okay. This ratio, and by the way, it's really months to days. Months to days represents the project's problem. Still nobody? Okay. Maddie, what it represents is that before teaching somebody the project is not the problem. It's motivating them to learn the project. Teaching the project itself does not take the time. The time is convincing somebody or communicating to somebody the reason why they should even want to learn the project. Do you guys understand me? That's the setup we're in right now. Or rather, the month-to-day relationship, which you can think of almost like 30-to-1 effort. And what I mean to say, by the way, is that this is kind of what storytelling solves. Because the motivation, right? This was 30 parts motivation. And then 1 part education. Does that make sense to everybody? So the point being is that Raymond coming here was also indicative of the problem that I was in. Sometimes when you really begin discovering the problem that you have, you begin seeing it everywhere, which is kind of a good sign. It means you're learning. And this ties in directly to what I'm going to talk about next. But do you guys understand this ratio? And do you guys remember me once saying that ratios make numbers meaningful? You now understand. Because once somebody's motivated, they'll learn anything. Do you guys understand? If somebody is in a burning building, you don't need to pay them to leave it. Do you guys understand? You don't need to book an appointment to get them on the phone to explain to them why they should leave the burning building. Do you guys understand? But, Maddie, in order for them to find the motivation to leave the burning building, what's the actual prerequisite? What is the prerequisite? Does anybody know? It's the prerequisite for the... They first need to know they're in a burning building. Do you guys understand? If they don't learn they're in a burning building, they will have no motivation to leave it. Do you guys understand? Allegorically, should we get so polarizing, we could describe PYRESWAP, which is funny because it has, it's named after fire or whatever. We could describe it as this is the only fire-safe room in the whole fucking building. Do you guys get it? Anyways, that's not exactly what I'm talking about now, but what I want to talk about, by the way, notes on the origin story. I didn't bring that book down, but legitimately, there's this. Legitimately, do you guys know who George R.R. Martin is? Since Jeff is here, Jeff, do you know who George R.R. Martin? Yes, okay. Jeff, do you know what part of British history George R.R. Martin bases his writing on? What part of British history? Or does Pirate Producer know? War of the Roses, indeed. War of the Roses. Damn, Jeff. Pirate Producer is not British. Anyways, yeah. War of the Roses. So War of the Roses actually talks about a house called Lancaster or whatever. But the point being is, why does everybody know who George R.R. Martin is? And how come nobody knows what the War of the Roses is? The average person, which of these they'd heard of. If you were to ask the average person, am I back on? Okay. Which of these two things they are more likely familiar with? Game of Thrones or War of the Roses? Which one do you guys think would be more familiar to people? Any guesses? Yeah, you fucking bet. You fucking bet. Now, do you guys know what Game of Thrones is? Game of Thrones equals War of the Roses plus... Oh, Maddie, you genius. You genius. That's right. Fantasy fiction. Yes, Jeff. We already called it fantasy. What did you think fantasy meant? Dragons are real, Jeff. Do you guys understand? Do you guys understand? The point being is, if we were to talk about the War of the Roses, I could put on like a professor blazer and be like, so, and there's six, you know what I mean? Like, I don't even want to get started. It's a very interesting plot, but the point being is that if you put dragons and tits in it, like Jeff keeps bringing up, do you guys not agree that it becomes more memorable, more bankable, worth more, just like more out of this fucking world? Do you guys understand what I'm saying? Yeah, Jeff. Okay. So what I'm describing here, quick parallel. I should have said this, yeah. Ta-da! Do you guys understand? Because if I were to pull out this book here, if you can maximize me again, right? How finance works, right? The Harvard Business District got, you know what I mean? What else we got here? We got Understanding Money Mechanics by Robert P. Murphy. What else we got? Oh, we got Options, Futures, and Other Derivatives by Jim Hull. I think this is the 11th edition. What else we got? My favorite one, Asset Liability and Liquidity Management by PYRESWAP. I'm just gonna, like, if I were to do a survey, I'm just gonna... It was probably already boring to hear the titles of those books said out loud. Do you guys understand? Like, was it already like... Okay. So the point being is, if you were to talk about the War of the Roses, like, let's be honest, you guys have never even heard of it before, right? Thank you, Jeff. But anyways, okay. So, as I was saying earlier, I'm working on character development. And one of those characters actually being myself in a story. And basically what I've learned is that there are fantasy characters that get used for sales. Do you guys know of one? Does anybody know a fantasy character that gets used for marketing? Here, I'll give you a name. I'll drop a name. I'm not scared. Ronald McDonald. Yeah, Santa Claus, Mickey Mouse, exactly. Very true. Yeah, top to bottom, yeah. By the way, Jeff, do you know that Santa Claus, as we know him, is actually a fucking Coca-Cola company invention? Did you guys know this? Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, for those of you who don't know, Santa Claus in all red is a Coca-Cola version. So before Coca-Cola, Santa Claus was wearing, brown, green, regular clothes, I guess, or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, he still was like a wintry guy in a winter outfit. But like, the outfit of I'm in all red with just like the white trim and just white. Just red and white Santa Claus. Why is he just red and white? Because it matches Coca-Cola's color palette. Make sense? So yeah, the version of Santa Claus that is only red and white is in fact the Coca-Cola version of Santa Claus that goes back to the 1950s. So believe it or not, yeah, that version of Santa Claus is less than 100 years old. No, I don't think that they made the polar bears wear red scarves and shit. Do you remember that? I'm gonna let you guys know, polar bears don't normally wear red scarves. You get what I'm saying? Coke was just capitalizing on the idea that red and green were Christmas colors, and they just made it so that Santa Claus wasn't wearing green. Do you guys know what I mean? So what they would do is they would put Santa next to the tree. You know what I mean? Do you guys get what I'm saying? The tree is green, Santa's red. You guys get it. All right. Okay, well, anyways. Okay, the last thing that I can talk about today, and actually I kind of want, now I kind of just want to end the show and get back to work. The last thing, you know what? Never mind. Yeah, okay. Does anybody have any questions? Otherwise, we'll see you Monday. I'm literally trying to just maximize storytelling effort, etc., going to the moon, solve the project. Yeah. Do you guys understand at least how much better of a storyteller? Okay. Anyways. Yeah. This is now we're now high effort. This is working. This is going to the moon. Okay. I can now literally look back at the past and say wow. Errors. I can just identify 1,000 errors I was making. Alessio, did you not hear? Did you not hear the story? Or even like a quick story. Okay? Okay, I'll tell a story. Alright. I will try to do. Here, first I'm gonna put these very exciting for bedtime. No, I wish, you wish. Yeah, this is gonna be the hook story. Which is kind of I would argue that most people. Yep. Bedtime story maxing. I'll tell you this. When we get into the concept lore, it will be on some like Ronald McDonald shit. You know what I mean? Like it has to be, you know, imagine if Ronald McDonald sold you what a derivative was instead of a hamburger, right? That's really what we're going for. But anyways, so I'll never forget this night for the rest of my life. And I can still hear the keys in my hand jingling loudly as my whole body shook with a nervous anxiety. That night, all of the tall trees around the house were blocking the moonlight, and I had to feel in my hands for the right key to open the front door. My palms kept sweating, so I had to keep changing my hands and wiping them on my pant legs to keep finding the right key. The door, the light inside the house came on, and the door was opened. Yeah, that's enough. Okay. All right, guys, end of the PYRESWAP show. Talk to you later. Bye.